Howdy folks, welcome back to World of Tanks with the mighty Jingles. I hope you all had a great Christmas and a happy new year. And I'm back. Yeah, I took a break over the Christmas and New Year period. We're back doing World of Tanks, kicking off the new year with a World of Tanks review of this thing here, the AT-15 British Tier 8 tank destroyer. Now I've only properly reviewed one other British tank destroyer, and that was down here at Tier 5, the AT-2. I haven't done a review of the AT-8 or the AT-7, and I'm not saying I'm not going to review them, but I'm not in any great rush to do it because the AT-8 at Tier 6, the AT-7 at Tier 7, they just weren't very good machines. They weren't particularly bad, but there was nothing, oh, I've just unlocked the AT-7, yoo-hoo, said nobody ever. They're just not those kind of machines. And I was kind of expecting the AT-15 to be more of the same, but it wasn't. And the reason I was expecting it to be more of the same was because up until this point, the high point for me in the British tank destroyer line had been the AT-2, because it's a Tier 5 machine that gets absolutely ridiculous armour. 203 at the front, 101 at the sides and rear. It's got this weak spot at the top, the commander's hatch, but it's not particularly weak. However, anybody who knows what they're doing will give AT-2s problems if they get close enough to reliably hit that hatch. Luckily, you don't often come across people in random battles in World of Tanks who do actually know what they're doing, so you can have lots and lots and lots of fun driving the AT-2. Not so much the AT-8, and even less the AT-7, and the reason for that is because the armour doesn't get any better, the mobility doesn't get any better, and the guns shooting back at them do get a lot better. And so while you can have monstrous fun trolling in the AT-2 down in Tier 5 at Tier 6, it's not quite that much better. Tier 7, it's starting to get pretty horrible, and I was expecting the same at Tier 8. But it just wasn't the case. For some reason, the AT-15 is monstrous fun to drive and does very, very, very well. And I really couldn't figure it out. The guns do get better, unquestionably, as you go up the British tank destroyer line. From Tier 5 with the AT-2's 6-pounder gun, which is not very good, but you can't have everything. The AT-8 gets a 17-pounder gun, and it's not a bad gun. The AT-7 gets the first 20-pounder gun, and it is a very, very good gun. But the thing is, the gun shooting back at you, well, these machines all have the same armour. The 203 at the front, 101 at the side, 101 at the rear. And the AT-2 is quite a small target, and it doesn't really have that big weak spots. The AT-8, on the other hand, well, the guns shooting back at you are getting a bit bigger now, and they're not that concerned about your 203 armour at the front, especially given that this thing is riddled with frontal weak spots. And it's an even worse deal in the AT-7, which has weak spots galore all over the front, and the kind of guns shooting back at this thing don't really care that much about the 203mm of armour anyway. When you get up to the AT-15, again, you've got a great gun. Actually, you've got two great guns. And the armour does get a buff, but 228mm at the front, 152 at the side, which is very good, but it's very flat as well, and still the same 101 at the rear. But now this thing's Tier 8, and there are some seriously big machines shooting back at it, and they don't really care that you have 228mm of frontal armour. So I was expecting this thing to be just more of the same, the British tank destroyer line, and it just wasn't. And I think to explain the reason why, we're going to have to open up Tank Inspector and have a look at the armour, because it's not just 228mm of armour compared to 203mm of armour. There's more to it than that. So here's the Tank Inspector software, and if you're interested in downloading this software, by the way, I highly recommend it. Link to the download in the description of the video down below. And to explain why the AT-15 is so much better than its Tier 6 and 7 predecessors, well, first we're going to have to look at its Tier 6 and 7 predecessors. So, the AT-8 at Tier 6, and there it is. Now it has the same equivalent on paper armour as the AT-2. Well, in fact, let's show you the AT-2, and I'll show you what I mean. And there it is. And if we flash up the damage model, we can see that it is actually, there are not actually that many weak spots at the front of the AT-2. You've got 203mm of armour there and there. The old driver's hatch in the front that everybody thinks is a weak spot is not. You've got 152mm of armour around the gun. The gun mantlet itself is technically a weak spot. It is spaced. It's 102mm of spaced armour, but there is a big old armour hole right behind it. There is no armour behind the gun mantlet. So if you can get through 102mm of armour, shoot at the gun mantlet of the AT-2. Other than that, again, 102mm, the commander's hatch at the top. But no real big gaping weak spots on the front of the AT-2. Which is why it's so disappointing when you go up to tier 6 and you get the AT-8 and have the same armour, except it's riddled with weak spots. The 203mm of armour is literally just the strip connecting the upper and lower glacis, and this strip centrally around the gun. Over here, that's only 76mm thick. This spot here where the machine gun is, and the spot around the armour plate covering the machine gun, is only 64mm thick. And then of course you've got this, it's not even a commander's hatch, it's a commander's tower, which is 102mm. And you've got the same deal when you go up to tier 7 with the AT-7. Once again, all of that frontal armour is actually, well, it's lying to you. It's just this strip here and a sort of central band over the front where the gun is. The machine gun port, gaping weak spot. It's only 76mm thick. The entire top of the tank is only 76mm thick. And once again, the commander's tower, 102mm. And so these things get penetrated from the front with relative ease. But then you get to the AT-15. And unlike its tier 6 and 7 counterparts, it doesn't have any frontal weak spots. Well, it kind of does and it kind of doesn't. You remember the gun mantlet issue with the AT-2, where the gun mantlet was 102mm of spaced armour, but there was nothing behind it? You've kind of got the same deal with the AT-15. This section here, the sort of collar around the gun, in front of the gun mantlet, is 127mm thick, but there is nothing behind it. The gun mantlet itself is as tough as old boots. 102mm with 152mm of armour behind it. The frontal armour of 229mm is in 3 main zones. It's the space here, you can see the red flashing sections, where the upper and lower glacis meet. It's the upper hull casement to the left and right of the gun mantlet, and then if you imagine the front of the AT-15 as being like an armchair, you've also got these red zones on where the armchair armrests would be. The rest of the front is only 127mm thick, but it's sloped. And the other cool thing about Tank Inspector is that down here, where it's showing you equivalent, this is basically effective armour thickness, depending on the angle of the armour, the sloping of the armour rather, and the angle from which you are looking at the armour. So, if you note that the upper glacis is actually sloped in 2 different segments. So, directly from the front, the lower part of the upper glacis is 127mm thick, but thanks to the sloping, it's effectively just under 200. The upper part of the upper glacis, again 127mm thick, but thanks to the sloping, it's around 235 to 240mm thick. As for the lower glacis, it's practically an auto bounce zone, and it's a tiny target. Even directly front on, it's just automatic ricochet. Depending on the caliber of gun shooting at it, obviously. Well, then again, no. You're not even going to be able to overmatch it because it's 127mm thick, so just don't shoot at the lower glacis. And the weak spots, again, are that you don't have these big old Eiffel Tower-like commander's hatches like you do on the tier 6 and tier 7. That's not that big a target, and it's 127mm, and it's rounded as well. So this is actually from the front. Unless you can land shots right on the collar of the gun mantlet, it's actually very well protected from the front. But again, it's a tier 8 machine, and even though the armour is thicker than the tier 6 and tier 7s and doesn't have the weak spots that the tier 6 and tier 7 have, it's still only, well, 229 or 127mm thick. But here's the thing about the AT-15. It has absolutely legendary gun traverse. And what I mean by that is the amount that you can turn the gun to the left and the right. You can practically shoot around corners in this thing. And it has 152mm of side armour. This thing side scrapes very, very, very well. You can quite literally park that thing on a corner at that angle and point that gun straight towards the camera. At that angle, well, suddenly you've got over 200mm of armour and almost 260mm of armour on the upper glacis there. Over here, yeah, effectively 242. It suddenly becomes a very, very, very well armoured machine because of the and it's all down to the fact that there are very, very few weak spots at the front of this thing, and the fact that you can turn that gun so far left and right to make this thing a very effective side scraping tank. And that's why the AT-15 just works in ways that the AT-7 and the AT-8 don't. The AT-15 also continues another British tradition in that its mobility is absolutely awful. It's a 60-ton machine with a 650 horsepower engine. It doesn't have a massive amount of grunt in the engine, and its top speed is 20 kilometers per hour, which is absolutely awful. And its traverse speed is only 20 degrees per second, which again is absolutely awful. But that's the British tank destroyers for you. They are not the most agile and athletic machines on the battlefield. On the bright side, again, as with the other British tank destroyers, particularly from tier 5 up, it does have a lot of health. 1450 hit points. And you're going to find that most of the tier 8 tank destroyers, while they do have very, very good guns, they are particularly vulnerable as soon as they get spotted, because they very rarely have more than 1,000 health. Well, they all have more than 1,000 health, but they don't have much more than 1,000 health. The Germans always held the flag for having the most health of any of the tier 8 tank destroyers, with machines like the Ferdinand, the Jagdpanther II, having around 1,200 health. Exactly 1,200 with the Ferdinand, the Rheinmetall Borsig 1,100, Jagdpanther II 1,150. But machines like the ISU 152 only has 1,050 health. And they can generally get 2 or 3 shot killed by the kind of things that are shooting back at them in the kind of games that they get into. While the AT-15 has 1,450, so it can, generally speaking, take 1 more hit than any of the other tier 8 tank destroyers. In reality, it can take substantially more hits than any of the other tier 8 tank destroyers because of the way that you angle and slope that armour, thanks to the epic gun traverse. It also has 307 meters view range, which is, fine, adequate for a tier 8, and top-notch 750 meter signal range. But then we come on to the armament, and it does get, well, actually it gets a couple of good guns, but you're probably only going to really use one of them. Let's have a look at the tech tree, and I'll show you what I mean. So you can see that I have researched everything on the AT-15 other than the 20-pounder Type B barrel gun. And that is the last thing that I am going to unlock on this tank, and it should be the last thing that you unlock on this tank as well, because you just don't need it. It's 45,000 XP, and all you get for that 45,000 XP is a marginal rate of fire increase, an unnoticeable accuracy increase, and a tiny, tiny rate of fire increase. It's just not worth 45,000 XP that you should be spending on unlocking the tracks, which are going to cost you 14,500 XP, unlocking the top engine, which is going to cost you 16,000 XP. Right, that's where you want to be spending your research points first, not on this gun. You're going to get the 20-pounder gun for free because you've already unlocked it on the AT-7. There it is, on the AT-7 down there. It's the top gun on the AT-7. And you can start using that gun straight away. The difference between the two guns is minuscule. 11.11 rounds per minute versus 12 rounds per minute. Penetration and damage are both exactly the same because they're the same gun. 226 and 230 on both. 0.31 versus 0.3 accuracy. Hardly any difference whatsoever. 1.9 second aiming time versus a 1.7 second aiming time. Why spend 45,000 XP on differences that you are not going to notice when you get that gun for free and you're going to need the XP to get the tracks and the engine? That's why that gun is going to be the last thing that you research and unlock on the AT-15. Not only that, you don't even need that gun to get to the Tortoise. You do have to go through the 32 pounder. Now, the 32 pounder, well, it's going to come down to personal choice. Once you've unlocked the 32 pounder, and the 32 pounder should be the second last thing you unlock on this thing. It literally should be tracks, engine, then the 32 pounder, and then you've got a choice whether you're going to go for the 20 pounder Type B or straight onto the Tortoise, because you don't get the 20 pounder for free when you go up to the Tortoise, unfortunately. And whether or not you're going to actually use the 32 pounder to grind the XP that you need, or the 20 pounder Type A, is entirely up to you. There is not that much difference between the two guns, and for my money the 20 pounder is still the better gun. The rate of fire is slightly better, the penetration is better, the damage isn't as good, the accuracy and the aiming time is better. The only advantage the 32 pounder has is it has 250 damage compared to the 20 pounder's 230. In every other respect it's just not as good. So some people like using the 32 pounder. I couldn't recommend it. Unlock it by all means, you're going to have to get to the Tortoise, but most people are going to keep using the 20 pounder Type A barrel gun simply because you get it for free, and bang for buck it is an incredibly good gun. Also, the ammunition is a lot cheaper than the 32 pounder gun. Now, how you're going to go about getting yourself this 20 pounder is entirely up to you. If you go to the Tortoise's tech tree, you see that the stock gun on the Tortoise is the 32 pounder. The Type B barrel gun you're going to have to unlock, and it's still going to cost you 45,000 credits. Now, you can either do it by using the 32 pounder on the Tortoise to unlock it on the Tortoise, which will then give it to you for free, if you like, on the AT-15. But it's probably going to be much, much less trouble in the long run if you don't get the Tortoise until you have unlocked the 20 pounder barrel, Type B 20 pounder here on the AT-15, and then you go for the Tortoise, because the Tortoise is just going to be a much better machine with that gun. It is unquestionably a superior gun to the 32 pounder, and you can start using it straight away when you get there. So that would be my recommendation. So there it is, and as that great philosopher Animal Mother himself once said, you talk the talk, but do you walk the walk? Let's find out. So we're going to kick off with a tier 9 game here on Ruinberg.
Let's go.
This one was interesting. Now we have an E75, an IS-8, an STI, and a T-54E1, and then a bunch of tier 8s, and there's quite a few tier 7s in this game. I didn't get to see that many of the tier 7s. Keep an eye on that E75 in front of us. An E75 has 1820 health with the upgraded turret. Enemy T-29's been spotted. Very unfortunate. You don't want to be in a tier 9 match driving a tier 7 heavy. You don't want to be the first one seen. Things tend to end pretty poorly for you. Now the enemy, there's only one artillery on each side. Tier 8 artillery. They've got a Geschutzwagen Tiger P. Now I like this corner on Ruinberg with the great gun traverse on this tank. You can do some really good work on this corner. There's a T-25-2 over there. Okay. I'll take a pot. He's very well in cover. I hit him, but it just hits his top plate. Watch the C-75. Waiting to see if the T-25-2 is going to be dumb enough to pop out again. E-75 moves up onto the corner. Full health. Whoa! Whoa! Enemy artillery is even apologising for whoa. And just like that, we've lost one of the toughest tanks in the game. Well, I really, really don't want that to happen to me. But I can shoot under the rear of the turret of the E-75 to really ruin that Stuart Emil's day. So our E-75 just got one-shotted by artillery, and artillery is even apologising, look at that, to the E-75 driver. The E-75 driver's just speechless. He's probably already quit out the game in disgust. I figure, alright, as long as I don't go any further round the corner than that E-75 and use him as cover, I should. Oh lord, that's a lot of tanks. And suddenly I'm really glad that E-75 wreck is there. And I'm hit on this corner. Now they're all piling around the corner down the street parallel to this one, and we've spotted their artillery. AMX-39 is making a beeline for it. And if these guys are all going to concentrate on the fellas around the... They're pushing them back. You can see the guys in the road parallel have been forced right back. So I'm going to do a spot of side scraping here. Need to turn the tank. And again, using that all the cover from the dead E-75, just this tiny little section. There's the T-25-2. He's gone as well. So I've got the wreckage of the E-75 and this T-32's bum rushing me. Okay. I'm going to have to fight for my supper. And unfortunately, he managed to get around me. And my loader is injured. I'm trying to take his tracks off. Get the loader repaired. Healed, whichever word you want to use. Keep that T-32 between me and the STI. Got him. Took a hit. Yak Panther destroyed the STI. And oh, he's turning his gun. Then again, it looks like this guy is mostly stock. And we're gonna... Yep, got him. All we have left now is an E-75 and a T-30. Really surprised the T-32 didn't make a better job of that. But I ain't complaining. And I'll have the rear of an E-75 any day of the week. So that was alright. While that is technically the best game I've had in the AT-15, it's my first class mastery badge. I don't have Ace Tanker in this yet. I've only played about 5 games in it. It wasn't bad. 51,000 credits, 3,788 XP, 4 kills, a whole bunch of damage, spotting damage as well. Yeah, some. Not a lot. Oh, actually, that IS, 1,230 spotting damage. Let's have a look. Yeah, 1,300 spotting damage, 2,300 potential damage received, 3,100 damage done, sorted by XP earned. Tier 8 tank destroyer, Tier 9 game. Yeah, not bad. Didn't do the most damage. The T-54E1 did very respectable, 4,410, but he's Tier 9, I'm Tier 8. I got the most XP. But I have while that is technically First Class Mastery Badge, the best game so far I've had in this machine, I have had another game which I feel was a better match, even though the matchmaker was very, very kind. It was a Tier 8 game. Obviously, I'm in a Tier 8 tank destroyer, but it was just a better game, and that's the one I'm going to show you next. So, here it is. We're on steps. It's a Tier 8 game. There are not, well, a third of the team are Tier 8. There's only a couple of Tier 7s, the majority are Tier 6. Initially, my plan is to head over to the west and give some backup to the heavies. And judging by how quickly the west flank just crumbles, I am pretty sure I would have been able to do a lot of damage over there. However, it was not to be. I get about halfway there. Oh, my WZ... See this Lux driver? He's apparently been watching my WZ132 video. Watch this. Unfortunately, he's doing it wrong, because he's been spotted. Bang! There he goes. Artillery just nuked him. Damn you, Stuart. I wanted to kill you. And there he is. There's the Lux driver in chat. Jingles, I tried your tactic and I died. Well, you were doing it wrong then, weren't you? It's not my fault. It's a good tactic. Just, you know, the point is you don't get seen. Anyway, I'm heading over to the west flank, and then I look at the map. And I get a very, 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 very bad feeling. And I do recommend looking at the map when you're playing World of Tanks. It's a valuable skill that more people should use. So we've just lost a KV-1S and our T-50. We've got a KV-1S charging alone into 4 enemy tanks and tank destroyers, at least 4 enemy tanks and tank destroyers. And that is entirely predictable. He's just lost all of his health. Now this RS is going to be next. Now he's not charging down over the ridge straight into them, but the tank destroyers on my left, as you can see on the map, they cannot support this IS from up here. And if that IS dies, all of these guys are going to be free to go up into the low ground where the IS is, and then circle around us and put direct firing onto the tank destroyers behind me. So I'm rushing up to try to support the IS. But he's falling back, which means these guys are now going to have to come up over the ridge. And the AT-8 driver is saying, let them come over, because that's the only thing we can do right now. And the IS is pulling back, but he's badly hurt. So, check my flank, don't see anything there. I'm going to keep that rock on my left, trying to protect my flank from anything over that side, and wait to ambush these guys as they come up. You'll note we have a completely AFK 3002M sitting in the cap circle, and I'm taking a hit from an E25. Now, I did not expect that shot to penetrate the upper glacis, or the upper superstructure of the Panther 2, that one there, but hey, I'll take the damage. Back up. I need to deal with this E25 now. I can't have him shooting at my flank. Where's he gone? There's a 361H putting fire into me as well. There's the E25. One more shot. The 361H knocks my gun out. I'm definitely using the repair kit for the gun. 0.31 accuracy, 1.9 second aiming time. It's a good gun. You need it functioning properly. So, there's still 2 of them down there. There's a 3002M, there's a 361H that we know of. And then, this Stuart Emil, why would you do this? This I just did not understand. This guy's got like 50mm of armour at the most. Well, I'm going to use him as bait. Anybody who sees him coming is going to shoot at him rather than me, because they can penetrate him, whereas I might be problematic. Hit the Jagdpanther 2, set him on fire, he burns to death. And I do not spot the 3002M popping up on my right, and he takes out my ammo rack. Now, oh, this is bad. The 3601H is going to be concentrating on the Sture Mill, and he is. And the 3002M is also concentrating on this completely just... Well, while he's shooting at him, I can one-shot kill the 3002M. There goes the Sture Mill. Now I need to turn, put my frontal armour towards the 3601H. The western flank has completely crumbled. But I cannot turn around with the 3601H behind me. Enemy artillery is also still in play. Unfortunately, I'm ammo-racked, which makes the reload on this thing something in the region of 7 or 8 seconds. There's the 3601. Need to close the distance here. Artillery just fired and missed, which always makes me happy. And I do not like sitting out here in the open with French artillery in play. So I'm going to need to force the issue here. Get in closer. I can't be afford to be sitting still. Take him out. Now I can turn back and start doing something about the western flank. And that's when, well, two things happen. Artillery hits me, kills one of my loaders. And then, for some bizarre reason, I have a massive rush of shit to the brain here. I've got a dead loader and a damaged ammo rack. For some reason, while I was playing this, in my head I was equating dead loader with repair kit. And you're going to be sitting there screaming at the screen, Jingles, use your first aid kit, get your loader back up. But I didn't do it. I thought, my loader's dead and I've used my repair kit. Sudden rush of shit to the brain, and it cost me badly. This gun now has a 12-second reload. That's bad news. Now the AT-8 did what he could to try to stem the flow over there. Our E25 is rushing for the enemy cap. I'm sitting here with a 12-second reload. And we have 3 heavy tanks rushing our base. Now, our artillery's playing a great game. We've just lost the 3002M, who, while he was AFK, was at least spotting these guys for the artillery, so that we know where they are. I'm just informing the they're going AT-15, kill everybody. Yeah, ammo racked, dead loader. So the E25 is doing cartwheels around the enemy cap circle. Enemy artillery is still in play. The E25 is not sitting still. We've just lost our RT as well. There's just me and the E25 left in the match. So he's circling the cap circle to try to avoid artillery fire. I am going to have to go and reset, because there's potentially 3 of them going to cap us. The E25, even with a head start, is not going to beat 3 people capping. So I know that the Lerva doesn't have any capture points. I'm pretty sure the 4502A made it into the cap circle first. Our 88 driver is informing me that the IS is a one-shot kill. There's the enemy artillery. If he hits the E25, it's game over. Kill the IS. Not too worried about the Lerva. The Lerva doesn't have any capture points. I'm going to need to hit the 4502A though. Otherwise they're going to catch up. But I can't see him. Now, they've taken my tracks off, but I'm angled well. And I still have 678 health. The Lerva. Oh, there's the 4502A. Take the shot. No physical damage, but I did manage to blow his tracks off, which counts, resets his capture points. E25 manages to avoid artillery fire for long enough in order to cap. And there it is. You know, it's just one of those games where you literally had to do everything. You know, started on one end of the map, moved to the other end of the map, advanced, had to come back, reset the cap, just, you know, stick a broom up my arse and I'll clean the floor while I'm doing it. Is there anything else you would like me to do for your team? And you know, steel wall, defender, 5 kills. And it's actually quite embarrassing. When you sort it by XP earned, look at that. Double. Double the amount of XP. More than double the amount of XP than the next best person on either team. In fact, if you were to rule this guy out with his 551 XP and rule that guy out, you know, 3 times the XP or more, it was just ridiculous. We sort it by damage done. It's just as absurd. Very, very surprised. And this was one of the first games that I played in the AT-15. Played it quite early on. And was stunned at just how consistently dangerous this machine could be. Look at that. 5,500 potential damage received. Almost 3,000 damage done. Took 20 hits. 20 hits. Holy cow. This is a tough little machine. 20 hits in a tier 9 game. Well, I would never have lived long enough to take 20 hits in a tier 9 game. In a tier 8 machine, tier 8 match rather, this machine was able to carry big time. And this was the game where I thought, you know what, this machine has potential. So I was very, very pleasantly surprised with how effective the AT-15 actually is, especially coming after the AT-8 and the AT-7 at tier 6 and 7, which were very distinctly underwhelming. I mean, neither of them were terrible machines. They both get good guns, but oh, woohoo! I just unlocked the AT-7. Said absolutely nobody ever. You know, there's nothing exciting about them, and they do have significant drawbacks. The AT-15, on the other hand, it just works in a way that its 2 predecessors didn't. I mean, it's no ISU 152. I mean, it's, in fact, in some ways, it's the polar opposite of the ISU 152, that legendary Russian tier 8 tank destroyer with a BL-10 gun. But whereas they do kind of work in different ways. I mean, the ISU generally only needs 1 shot at you and you're in a world of hurt. But then it has to back the hell up because it's very, very vulnerable to return fire, whereas the AT-15 isn't. And people tend to hide when they see an ISU 152 because they don't want to get hit by that gun, which can make it difficult for the ISU 152 driver, if he's been spotted, to, you know, become effective. Whereas the AT-15 doesn't really care if it's been spotted that much. And most people aren't afraid of AT-15s for some reason. They think, oh, it's just an AT-15, and then they try to penetrate you and fail because you've angled or you're side scraping, and suddenly they're going, shit, where did all my health go? Because of the DPM. It's a great little machine. I've had a lot of fun driving it, and I'm sure that, you know, you British tank destroyer drivers, hold out, right? You don't have long to go. Right? The AT-15 is gonna be worth it. All right, from tier 8 up, it's all gravy with the British tank destroyers. Trust me, I've had a lot of fun driving this machine, and I'm sure you will too. As always, folks, take care on the battlefield, and I'll catch you next time.